He used them to claim that he is the only potential leader who could counter Nigel Farage and ensure that Brexit isn't delayed any further.
Now give us the Brexit we voted for, says The Express, claiming the poll has given a clear message to politicians.
Well, joining us now is the Mail's Andrew Pearce, the Mirror's Kevin McQuire and expert in European politics, Professor Anand Menon. Good morning to all of
Morning,
you.
Sir. Morning.
Bank holiday Monday, we thought, oh, you will come in, it'd be nice and relaxing, and then all hell breaks loose overnight, doesn't it?
It is the worst result the Tory party's probably had in 50 or 60 years ever, I would think.
I think, yeah, since 1832.
And to be fifth behind the Greens, and no disrespect to the Greens, I know the Green leader's coming on shortly, but it is a catastrophe, and they deserve it because of the way they completely screwed up Brexit.
Is it a vote for Brexit, or is it a protest vote?
It's both, in my view, because if you add up the Brexit Party vote, UKIP, who almost evaporated, and the Tory vote, they're almost at 50%. I think the country's still in stalemate over whether we leave or we go, but it's a huge protest vote, and it's nothing for the Labour Party. They should be, in a night when the Tory party's in meltdown, romping ahead, and instead they come behind the Lib Dems.
And what about that, Kevin? Because was it the confusion of message that did for them, do you think?
Oh, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn stood in the middle of the road and he was run over from both directions. He had the Liberal Democrats and the Greens coming one way, bit of the Brexit Party the other way, and I think he knows he got this badly wrong. He's always been pushing a Brexit, a soft Brexit he would call it. He's been resisting some days, not others, a fresh referendum. And if you look at the question of that fresh referendum, which breathed life into the winners, into the Liberal Democrats and the Greens, who are winners just as the Brexit Party is, but you put the Liberal Democrats and the Greens together, explicitly pro-referendum, they got more votes than the Brexit Party.
Yeah.
Well, you can look at these results in many ways. Undoubtedly, the Brexit Party, Farage, very clear message, gets the most votes. 31% on which on a 38% turnout is about 13% of the electorate. So let's not get too carried away.
But as far as the electorate,
there's no majority for a no-deal Brexit. That's one thing we know there isn't.
But can we take from this that the people have spoken yet again, and yet again it's the people who've given clarity, which Parliament has been signally unable to deliver? Are we now
haven't given clarity, though.
Well, are we now going to see a complete divide that we are going to have, probably after the leadership campaign in the Tory party, we will see the Tories definitely going for a no-deal Brexit, and we will see Labour definitely going for a second referendum?
But we've got the same problem we started off with, which is there's no majority in Parliament for that, and Parliament will not vote for a no-deal Brexit. So the people are split down the middle, Parliament
But constitutional experts say there are ways around that, don't
Well,
they?
the IFG paper didn't quite say that. What it said was if you have a determined Prime Minister, it will be hard. But the one thing it didn't talk about, for instance, was if you have a Prime Minister who says, I'm going for a no-deal Brexit, Tory MPs will vote against that government in a vote of confidence. So the government will fall.
But I think your point is right, Richard, that Labour will now go near the Lib Dems and the Greens and advocate
in other words,
a fresh referendum.
They'll commit themselves.
Yeah, and the Tory party is going to chase all its voters who went to the Brexit party and will come much harder on the issue and be pushing no deal. But the Prof is right. There is no deal majority in a paralysed Parliament. The country's split. And Parliament is paralysed. So in a way, we're no further forward.
It makes it so hard to see how we move on from here, what happens next.
Well, this has made us more polarised. I mean, that's the sum total of last night's events, is we started off divided, we've woken up slightly more divided than we were before.
One of the figures that I saw this morning coming in was that if this were to be replicated in a second referendum, and this is a rough figure, it would be about 50-50.
Yeah.
It would be about 50% to leave, 50%... Pardon?
The turnout would be far, far higher.
Oh, of course, the turnout would be higher. So what impact would that make on that result, then, do you think?
Well, we don't... I mean, the polling... I mean, most of the polling now is sort of 54-46 in favour of Remain. But what we don't know, and this is why it's too close to call, is we don't know who'd vote. We have no idea about turnout if we had another referendum. It will be close, and there wouldn't be some decisive margin either way, I wouldn't have thought.
What I think it makes more likely too is the Tory party will choose a new leader in the next few weeks. I think it makes Boris Johnson's ascendancy even more likely because he is seen as the one who can stop the Farage surge. They look at the other candidates. Who are they? Can we remember what their names are? Boris is the household name. He's the one who people have heard of, and I think this makes him even more of the front runner. And
do we think we might see some sort of loose coalition now between the Greens and the Lib Dems? Because, in a sense, they split the vote, didn't they? They split the Remain vote. Do you think they'll recognise that, and next time they'll come together in some kind of umbrella?
The big losers on that side, the very explicitly pro-Remain, a Change UK, Heidi Allen.
And what about the future of Change UK, then?
Yeah, finished.
Not a single MEP?
I think that, they had one real big policy, and that's a referendum, keep Britain in Europe, and they got just over 3% of the vote.
Less than UK.
Around the, yeah.
So what went wrong for them, do you think?
Around the same as UK.
Well, they've got a stupid name, that's one thing, and they should have done a deal with the Lib Dems and the Greens, who are all pro a second referendum or just overturning Brexit altogether, but they wouldn't because they thought they knew better.
And they were also, as worth saying, they were also a little bit unlucky because the premise for Change UK was that the Lib Dems were a busted flush. Then we had the local elections, and so that premise kind of melted away a little bit. So they were unlucky in that sense.
Would you expect the support for Brexit to fade a bit if it was a general election? I mean, how much of this do you think is a protest vote?
Well, what I would say is I think we need to be really, really careful about reading across from this to a general election because the British people aren't stupid. They know it's a European election, so it doesn't matter as much to them. They know that the electoral system is different, so you can vote for a small party and you're not wasting your vote.
So they can use it to give the two big parties a great big kick.
And the big thing we don't know is whether, when we go back to first past the post, whether actually the people who voted Liberal or Green or Brexit Party actually think, hang on, if I vote for my party, I might let the person I really hate into number 10.
The turnout here is very low. It's under 40%.
But it's higher than the last year.
Yeah, but only a couple of percent higher, Richard. I think a lot of people stayed at home rather than vote, and that was their own protest as well.
Fewer than 2 in 5 people
My grown-up
voted.
kids did. My grown-up
It's
kids,
like, there we are.
for the first time in their lives, didn't vote.
And I know people who thought, I can't bring myself to
That's
vote
exactly
for the
why
Tories,
they were
or they
protesting.
can't bring themselves to vote for their party if it was Labour. They just didn't bother.
They just have the thing is, particularly about younger people, many of them just have nothing but contempt
I get
for the parties that we have been voting for all our lives.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, look, I've got very little sympathy for people who don't vote. Sorry, I'm not picking on your kids. Get out, vote for the least worst option. You want to say, have your say in the ballot box. Don't moan all the rest of the time.
Do you think, as I was saying earlier to Richard Gainsford, do you think that we will now see this is an opportunity for the Brexit Party and for Farage to give us some sort of idea of what their manifesto would be?
Because we don't have any details.
Because
there is nothing beyond Brexit at the moment.
And they're fighting the by-election in Peterborough in a couple of weeks' time, and they do not have a single policy. And, of course, it's quite a bunch of people there. You've got Tories like Anne Widdecombe in there, who's a good hardline Thatcherite, that's why I like her, and you've got Labour Party members who've joined that party too, so it's going to be very difficult to meld together a manifesto which they can unite.
Look, he's running away from his record, Nigel Farage, because he doesn't want to be pulled up on when he wanted to privatise the NHS and so on. And it's all we know about the Brexit Party is a protest party who wants to go out without a deal. Of course, that's not what he promised at the referendum in 2016 when he said a good deal will be very easy. He's changed his position on that. Once the Brexit Party has to say what it stands for elsewhere in the general election, other issues come in, that's when he'll run up against his problems again.
He also said overnight that he says that Brexit now, because of this result, absolutely must be part of, and a big part of, any future negotiations with Brussels, to which one has to say, what negotiations? Because there aren't any planned. Well,
and Brussels tell us that they're not going to reopen the withdrawal agreement, Mrs May's withdrawal agreement, which is dead as a dodo, as far as I can see. The Commons isn't going to support it. So whoever succeeds, takes over the Tory leadership at the end of July, they've only got a couple of months to find a way to get us out of the EU with a deal, or we leave out with no deal.
You've still got the case in Parliament. There is no majority for the Tories. There's no majority for no deal, and you're negotiating with 27 other countries who, when we said jump, don't shout how high. They're going to look after their interests too. The Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland border hasn't gone away.
That's why they go. That's why Boris is going to push. That's why Boris is going to push.
If you're more cynical than these two, and I'd say actually a new Prime Minister coming in could go to Brussels. They could sort of fiddle with a couple of words, change the font, bring it back. He can say, I've got a whole new deal. And it might be enough for the Tories to think, you know what,
because people might feel it's different, even if
people might.
They want
to give the new lead. They want to give the new leader goodwill. And remember, there's a lot of Tory MPs never really came to terms with Mrs May because they know that she wasn't a Brexiteer. She never believed in it, and she regarded the whole thing as a damage limitation.
And what about
exercise.
the new Tory leader, though? Are they going to be welcoming the Brexit MEPs with open arms, saying, yeah, come and join the negotiations?
Boris Johnson would be delighted by this result, frankly, because it does make his process
makes his job a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, you know what it really is? The more desperate the Tory party is, the more likely they're going to turn to the serial liar that Boris Johnson is. And that's why he wants it to be as bad as possible. because his chances are improved.
What about individual MPs this morning, waking up and looking at these results, who are Remainers, people like, say, Anna Soubry, it doesn't really matter which party they're a part of, who are MPs in constituencies who voted Leave? They must be petrified.
Yeah.
I mean, Anna Soubry, we'll be talking to her later.
Yeah.
I mean, she must be looking at the ashes of her political career looking at this.
Well, given that change doesn't seem to fly, now, it might change, but I doubt it will.
Wouldn't you be worried if you were her this morning?
And the Tory party is just about to choose a candidate in her seat. The Brexit party was standing in that seat. She's flattened. I mean, I think all those Change UK MPs... I think in Lambeth, where Chuka Umunna is the MP, he was once seen as a future leader of the Labour Party. The Lib Dems won that constituency. The Lib Dems, for heaven's sake. Extraordinary result.
It's so important for parties, and particularly for their leaders, to be able to take the emotional temperature of the country that they seek to lead. Do you think that the big hitters in all the parties that we're talking about today have got the message of how angry the constituencies are, how furious they are with them?
They're stupid if they haven't. But I was listening to Emily Thornberry, the Labour Shadow Foreign Secretary, on the TV last night. She just doesn't seem to get it, in my view. She's going to take the Labour Party the other way, towards staying in the European Union.
The danger is, and this is what plagues politics at the moment, is that everyone will wake up this morning and say, this election has proved that everything I've ever said was right. And everyone will just double down on what they were saying beforehand. There's precious few people out there saying, hang on, I've got to pause and think about it.
I think the lesson is you've got to be definite. And the Greens, the Libs and the Brexit Party were definite.
Absolutely.
Labour wasn't definite. In one way, the Conservative Party, she's pushing for Brexit, but do you understand the Brexit?
No.
It's difficult to define.
Well, the Tories
in
were
many
pushing
ways,
for
so
Brexit that many Brexiteers didn't think was Brexit. That was the problem.
No, well, it wasn't really.
It is.
We will be
couldn't
talking
explain it.
more about this throughout the programme. Anand, just sum up, how much of a political sort of earthquake do you think this was overnight then? Because it has been a huge shock for the main parties.
I think there's no doubt that in Conservative and Labour HQs this morning, there are going to be people thinking, what do we do? We've got to do something, because this really is a nightmare for both of them.
And what will they do?
Well,
What's going to happen?
Well, the Tories can change their leader.
The
Thank
Tories will
Lord.
change their leader.
That's a great help for them.
Whether Corbyn's going
They're
to shift,
stuck
I'm
with
not as
Corbyn.
Do you think
confident
there'll be
as
a change
Kevin
there?
that he is going to come out firmly in favour of a referendum.
They're stuck with Corbyn.
Yeah, but,
Good luck.
But it is incredible, right? 2017 election, two-party politics came back. Labour and the Tories got 83%.
Yeah.
83% of the vote. You look at their share now; it's down 23%. That is a catastrophic fall for those two parties.
Just before we end it, what do we think? Ask all three of you this. What do we think Theresa May is thinking as she wakes up to her toast and croissants this morning? Do we think she's feeling shame at what's happened to her party? Or do you think she's feeling utter suffused relief?
I think relief. I think relief. It's her fault, but it's still relief because she's got... Yes, it is, because she was hopeless.
I think she'll be feeling vindication, and she'll be thinking all those Tory MPs who wouldn't back my Brexit have reaped what they've sown. That's what she will do. She will feel vindicated by that message. She's not going to take responsibility for it.
No.
Do you think she'll make a statement?
No.
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 But I think she'll be angry. As Kevin said, she'll be angry with those Tory MPs that stopped this deal getting over the line, which meant that yesterday happened.
OK, guys. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much. For now, we
later.
were just mentioning Anna Soubry from Change UK. She is standing by. She is one of those that we'll be speaking to very shortly. Also speaking to representative from the Lib Dems and the Greens. Many more to come. Stay with us. First, though, let's take a look at the weather. Here's Becky with all the details.
Good. Thanks very much indeed.
We're grateful for that. Well, expert in European politics, Professor Anand Menon, is here just to put this all in context for us, because where do these results leave us then within the Brexit process? It has been such an earthquake overnight, hasn't it, with these results coming in?
It has been an earthquake. It's clearly a worry for the two big parties. I think for the population as a whole, it leaves us more frustrated, more bored, more fed up with Brexit than we were beforehand. But the problem is it almost makes Brexit harder to solve, because one of the conceivable ways out of Brexit, given that Parliament is deadlocked, would be to have a general election. And what does last night mean? It means the only people who want a general election are the SNP, the Greens and the Lib Dems, but neither of the big two parties is keen to go to the people at the moment. So that possible exit from this, that you go to the people, you get a new Parliament and you try again, is more or less closed off in the short term.
Interesting, because one would have said yesterday that probably Jeremy Corbyn would very much like to have a general election. Are you saying that this morning, looking at these figures, and, you know, you're the expert here, he's going to be having second thoughts about that?
I would have thought if I was in the hierarchy of either Labour or the Tories and someone said to me, let's have a general election before Brexit is sorted out, I might say, let's think twice about that.
What about the likelihood of a second referendum? What about the likelihood of a no-deal Brexit? How are those things changing as a consequence of what we saw last night?
Well, a lot of that's going to feed through. We're going to have to wait and see what the MPs start saying. When it comes to a hard Brexit, there is no doubt at all that there will be some people in the Conservative Party who look at last night and say, what that means is we have to leave without a deal if that's the only option, because we can't hang around inside.
So it's a terrible result for the Conservative Party, but a terrific result for Boris Johnson.
Quite possibly. I mean, there is a school of thought that says the worse the Conservatives feel about their electoral prospects, the more likely they are to turn to him, because there are still those in the Conservative Party who see him as the person who can reach out across the divide and gain votes. I mean, opinion is divided about Boris Johnson as to whether or not he's the Heineken politician who can reach parts that other Tories can't reach, or whether he's the Marmite politician who, because of what he did in the referendum, is now very, very divisive and therefore can't reach across the divide. We won't know.
Well, the party membership love him.
Yep.
He's streets ahead, and
well,
as things
that's the electorate
stand...
that matters now.
Pardon?
That's the electorate that matters now.
Absolutely.
But is there a danger of them getting wrapped up in who the next leader's going to be and getting sidetracked from the core issue of actually getting on with and delivering Brexit?
Well, yes. I mean, Brexit has meant that effectively we've not really been governed for 3 years because Parliament has been so obsessed with negotiating Brexit, with debating Brexit deals, that not much at all has happened. And I think, I mean, you talked earlier about a parallel with getting the war done. The difference is we all wanted to win the war and we all knew who the enemy were and we were all agreed on that. The problem with Brexit, of course, is we're all facing in different directions.
A very good point. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Yeah, thank
Enjoyed
you.
talking to you.
Fascinating.
Right, still to come on Good Morning Britain. Should workers be granted compassionate leave when their pets die? We're debating that next. And I say, talking to Nigel Farage. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.